My name is Jamiria Smith.
My name is Samara Bunyan.
And my name is Anita Owens.
And together we chose to do our presentation on domestic violence against women. I personally have a heart for domestic violence because I've had two friends who have experienced domestic violence from their partners. They have had children by these men, and yet they have been beaten for whatever reason they chose to. I also had a classmate who died. We all graduated in 2008. In January 2009, we all went to her funeral because the father of her child actually shot her in the head, and then after he shot himself. And they left a baby behind. The baby wasn't even 1 year. Also, Anita, her sister went through domestic violence for 10 years. So this really hits home for us.
So what does domestic violence look like? Oftentimes we don't think it's happening because we don't see physical signs of it. But in fact it does happen. And so this woman is Susan, who looks like a normal woman. She's a mother, she's a wife, the stereotypical great woman who's hardworking. But this is also Susan when experiencing domestic violence. And so what we want to show you all is a quick clip on what she has to go through and what she's experiencing daily.
In a nice neighborhood in upstate New York, in a nice house like the ones you know, behind closed doors, a father commands his 13-year-old son to pick up a camera and start recording.
Look at it, bitch. You play those stupid games with me, I'll knock your teeth out of your face.
The father delivers a verbal flogging to the mother in front of their children.
Rag, in front of the kids.
It will go on for nearly an hour.
You little slut.
If I see a dog chew me ass, I won't stop. I won't stop.
It is domestic abuse, the kind we hear about but often don't believe.
I don't want to see your stupid ass book itself. Stupid ass helper.
Susan is 42 years old. They have 3 children. The father, Ulmer, directs his 13-year-old son, the cameraman, to get a close-up of their emotionally battered mother.
Zoom in, you see a tear. Nah, not a tear out of that face.
He indicates he wants the tape to prove that his anger at his wife is justified. What prompts his tirade? Susan asks him if he'd like some lunch.
Come over here with this stupid.
Okay, so what you all just witnessed is verbal abuse. But it goes further, and we want to show you this.
In 2003, terrifying images of physical abuse, the kind the experts say takes place every 15 seconds someplace in this country. The difference is, this is caught on video.
You don't know what to do. Look at this stupid ass. Look at the way you look.
Behind the camera, a 13-year-old boy watching his mother slapped, slugged, and throttled by his father.
You keep playing the game, man. Knock your head across that ball.
At one point, for nearly 3 minutes, the son seems unable.
So you all can only imagine what kind of effect this had on not just her, but her children who were standing behind watching, and not only watching, but recording this violence taking place.
So what actually is domestic violence? According to the Department of Justice, domestic violence is the pattern of abusive behavior in a relationship that is used by one partner to gain and maintain control over another partner.
So let's talk about a historical perspective on domestic violence. It has been happening since the beginning of time, and it still is a problem. And so according to Dr. Vivian Cox, there are about 3 major influences that have impacted Western society's view on domestic violence. These influences include Judeo-Christian cultural beliefs, Greek philosophy, and Western legal code. And you may be wondering, what do these 3 have in common? And what these 3 share in common is that they believe that patriarchy is natural, that violence against women is a natural expression for male dominance. And so just to prove that these things are still occurring, although many cultural shifts have taken place, In 1990, around the time that many of us was born, or right before that, the first Violence Against Women Act was signed, just to begin to protect women from going through these domestic violence abuses. And in 2009, President Obama declared that the first sexual assault month. But most shocking for me is that on October 12th of this year, the Kansas Capitol rescinded their law to take away domestic violence abuse. And so what that means is they decided that they wanted to take away this law, not to protect women, to save police officers a little bit of time. So can you only imagine what things are going to occur in Kansas and no authorities will be there to help these women?
There are 4 types of violence. The first type of abuse against women is physical abuse. Physical abuse includes hitting, slapping, shoving, grabbing, the pulling of the hair, and it also includes denying a partner medical care. These are triggered by alcohol and violence majority of the time, and it's forcing them to use drugs and alcohol. The second type is sexual abuse. Sexual abuse is forcing or threatening someone into sexual activities without their consent. It includes marital rape, attacks on sexual parts, and forcing sex after physical violence has taken place. Psychological abuse is causing fear by intimidation. It's threatening physical harm to self, partner, the children. It's also the destruction of property and forcing isolation from family, friends, school, or work. The last is economic abuse. Economic abuse is when the abusive partner seizes all financial means from the partner being abused. They usually have to beg to get money to go places and do things with it.
And there are several myths in our society that promote or perpetuate domestic violence. One of these is that people believe that domestic violence is not a problem, or that women deserve to be hit, or that women provoke violence. And even that middle and upper class women don't experience domestic abuse as much as poor and minority women. And the worst of them all, what we've all thought, what we've all heard, is if the abuse was that bad, why wouldn't she leave? But these are the reasons why women don't leave. Because domestic violence not only affects them, but it hurts everyone. And they have a lack of resources often. Oftentimes they're either unemployed or they're the only source of income, like we saw about Susan in the beginning, and they have children to take care of. Or the negative responses by services and authorities handling it as it's just simple disputes. Or what Kansas is going to do, ignore these domestic violence calls. Or traditional thinking. And that refers to gender roles, that women are supposed to be submissive, that they're supposed to be subordinate, that they are looked at as sex objects, and even their religion defines them where they believe that they have no other alternative and they cannot leave because divorce is not accepted in their culture.
The pattern of abusive relationships, it starts with tension. So you may get into an argument and you know, Matt and I think it's that bad. Oh well, we were just arguing. He was mad at me, I did this. Then the tension starts to grow. It starts to become more rough. It gets a little more rough. And you keep arguing, then the argument might get right there in the face, and then it may stop. Then an event triggers. The lady in the beginning, all she had to do was ask him if he wanted some lunch. And that triggered him to go on with the verbal and the physical abuse. Then the period of comes. That's called the honeymoon phase. That's when they're like, oh well, he really loves me and he's really a sweet person and he took me out to lunch and dinner. And so it kind of erases what has happened prior. It kind of makes them feel like, well, he loves me, he was just mad that day, so whatever. Then the above cycle changes. It comes back around, but it gets worse as it comes back around.
So how do you know when domestic violence is affecting the people you know? According to the Women's Health, there are 6 common signs to look for. The first one is physical injuries, since they are the most common and most obvious. Other signs include unusual fatigueness or tiredness. For example, you might know someone who's always been active in her community, in sports, or even at her job, and suddenly withdraws or loses interest. Depression, anxiety, or other common signs. For example, usually women that are victims of abuse have to constantly call their partner and tell them where they're at, what time they're going to be home, and that kind of thing. Lack of spending money is another thing, just like maintaining a job. And lastly, one that is very sad is isolation. Often perpetrators maintain victims away from family and friends to keep the power and control in a relationship. But we've heard all this information. Now let's see how bad it is actually in the U.S. According to the National Coalition Against Domestic Violence, 95% of abuse victims of domestic violence are female. 95%. In fact, they argue that 50% of all U.S. females will go through physical abuse in their life. There's approximately 20 females here in this room. Take a look around. If this represented the U.S., 10 of us would be victims of domestic violence. Every 9 seconds, according to the Partnership Against Domestic Violence, a woman is battered. In fact, they argue that domestic violence is the leading cause of injury among women. These numbers are higher than muggings, car accidents, and cancer combined. So, if her presentation lasted approximately 20 minutes, 130 women, at least 130 women, would go through a physical injury in the U.S. As we go on, keep in mind that these are not just number and statistics. These women that are being abused are someone's mother, someone's daughter, someone's sister, someone's friend. It could be your friend, your mother, your sister. Now, let's go into the state of Georgia. Sadly, the state statistics were in line with national statistics. According to the Georgia Department of Human Resources, domestic violence is also the leading cause of injury for girls and women in the state of Georgia. In fact, there's 96% of fatality victims here in the state, according to the Georgia Domestic Violence Fatality Report. And it's really sad because in 90% of those cases, the perpetrator actually had committed domestic violence in the past. And 74% of those women were actually employed. So they were seen by people out there in the community, people like you and I that could have something to help those women. Currently, Georgia ranks number 6 in the nation in the number of females murdered by males. Our society talks so much about the family of values, and they create this fear in girls from early ages about being afraid of strangers. Just sadly, the majority of the injuries against females and women is committed by the people that we're told that is supposed to love and protect. To be honest with you, as I was in denial as I was going through these statistics. I was like, okay, maybe this is happening, in other parts of the nation. And then when I came into the state, I was like, okay, maybe this is happening in bigger cities, maybe in Atlanta. However, in 2005, Lowndes County, despite being the 21st in the list ranked by population according to the U.S. Census Bureau, had more deaths than Fulton, the first county. We are 9 times smaller, yet had more deaths than they did. It's unbelievable. I mean, this is a problem that is not only happening in our nation, it's happening in our state. It's happening here in Lowndes. Let me tell you about Maria. Maria, this is Maria. Maria lived here in Valdosta. In fact, she lived less than 3 miles away from the university. Most of y'all probably remember Miss Jaleesa Clapp, the migrant farm worker lady that came to talk to us. They were friends. So I mean, we had someone in common. We donated food to them. Maria attended the migrant health clinic. Maria came to the U.S. 12 years ago with no education. However, in the 12 years that she had been here, she accomplished so many things, so many of her lifetime goals. She obtained her elementary certificate, her middle school certificate. She even obtained a cosmetology license. She learned how to speak English fluently. And currently, before she died, she was working on her GED with BSU professor Espinosa Blanco, the lady on her right. But let's go into a typical day for Maria. Maria was extremely hardworking. She maintained 3 jobs aside from everything else she did. She worked as a chef at a local restaurant, at a local hotel here in Valdosta. She also worked at a Mexican store that's only a couple of minutes away from here. And she worked part-time in her beauty shop. On top of that, she designed clothes and created art pieces. In fact, tomorrow, November the 4th, there was going to be a reception because there was an art exhibit that was displaying both the art of Dr. Spinoza and Maria. However, sadly, this is not going to occur. And in fact, what would have been her art exhibit turned into her memorial. Last Friday, October the 28th, we went and we were part of that memorial. And we learned so much about Maria from her friends, from her family members. And it is so sad that incidents like these are happening here in Valdosta, in our backyards, in our neighborhoods. This was a picture taken at that memorial. Maria still had many dreams that I'm sure she would have realized if only she had been given the opportunity. Before I conclude, let me show you a video of how the average American reacts to domestic violence.
Provocative outfit.
What are you wearing?
Do you like it?
You're gonna wear that to meet my parents. Are you sick in your head? Are you stupid? Close the menu. Close it.
The abuse is causing quite a stir. These 2 diners hang on every word.
You know what? You stole everything, you joke. You know that? Do you hear me? Do you hear me?
The woman gets up to alert the manager. When she returns, we tell the abuser to draw the couple in.
Just let's see what he told her. You know, she's crying and we don't really want to get involved.
But I mean, I'm just asking you a quick question. Do you think that's appropriate to
We're
wear?
in a public place.
Right. But do you think that's appropriate to wear to go meet a person's
Now
parents?
listen to me. You're in a public place and you're embarrassing yourself as a couple.
Embarrassing themselves? What about her bruises?
I did see the bruises.
What did you think?
I was like, oh, this guy's hit her before. Like, what is she doing?
Why not go up to her and console her?
I just figured the way he was, if I stepped in, he would have just taken it out on her.
I was just kind of saying that this wasn't the place for him to have that kind of discussion. Are you saying it'd be better if they did this in private?
Yes. Take it somewhere else. It's something we've heard before.
No, you're gonna talk to me right now.
It was March 2006. Another what would you do scenario. A man abusing his girlfriend.
Trying to just take it out of here.
The time and place for things is not the time, and certainly not the place.
Actress Karen.
Well, I guess you're not supposed to whip your women out here and make me back in the house.
Mari, our battered woman, can relate.
He looked at me in my face and looked at my date and said,
You're embarrassing yourself as a couple.
as though I was partially responsible for it as well.
It's exactly what our expert predicted would happen before our cameras.
decide that the next time you're a witness of domestic violence, don't be silent. Speak out. We have to create dialogue. We have to talk about this. It's happening. And always let victims know they are not alone, that there's agencies that can help them.
The last thing we would like to do is tell you all about opportunities that you can take advantage of. Women and gender studies often do something for domestic violence because this is October. Well, we're in November now, but October was Domestic Violence Month. But there's always a clothesline project, and you all probably seen those shirts hanging up across campus everywhere. And this year, over 640 students created a shirt. And a lot of those shirts were very compelling. They were talking about being raped, talking about being abused. And so even if you desire not to create a shirt, we challenge you to read a shirt. And that could even impact how you look at domestic violence. Also, there's a handprint project that took place on campus for males. You can still sign this. What they ask is that a male sign their name on this and vow not to abuse a woman. And maybe that'll hold you responsible and make you remember that you committed yourself to something and that you won't allow yourself to do that. And there's plenty of volunteer opportunities in the community. You can volunteer at the Haven. You can even, if you know one of your friends, family members who's experiencing this, you can direct them to the Haven that's locally in Valdosta. And what we did as a group, as Anita already explained, we attended Maria Laverta's memorial service, and we contributed because her family was in Mexico. She didn't have any resources, and they had to cremate her body, and her mother had to call and plead just to get her body to be sent back to Mexico. And so that's what our action team did. We thank you for paying attention to our project, and we have some little flyers. Some of you all may already have it, and we have some little ribbons if some of you decide that you would like to represent domestic violence. Even though that month is gone, it's still occurring. And we also have these for males that decide they want to pledge, and it's just up to you. Thank you.